Uh, First of all, I would like to thank all of you who have come here. We will take a journey. When we were students, we had some basic questions about nutrition to a child. Now I start my journey. We all want to talk about a child's nutrition after his birth. But let me tell you, nutrition starts before birth. The preparation for nutrition starts before birth. And as you can see, when this fetus lies in a warm climate, protected from light, protected from sound, moving in the gravity, there is a preparation going on that once the child will be born, the most important nutrition, that's the breast milk, should be given. Often as a student and even as a resident, we used to struggle. There were some mothers who could never produce milk. And we always thought that there's something wrong in our technique, that we as lactational personals or as medical personals, we don't know enough. Let's see what happens even before. So while the fetus is seeing in the mother's womb, is hearing in the mother's womb, is smelling. Incidentally, the first sensation which comes to the child, anybody? What's that first sense? Is it vision? Is it hearing? What is it? Smell. So, why do you think smell became the first one? Anybody? Why was it that smell was the first thing to start for a human life to come to this planet? Yes?
The smell of the breast, the child is attracted to the...
No, that is true after birth. But I am saying as a fetus, why is the first sensation of olfactory developed?
Whatever the mother eats.
Yes, sir?
Whatever the mother eats.
No, that's okay. But I am saying, why didn't vision come first? Why didn't hearing come first? Why didn't touch come first? Why did olfactory? And there's a beautiful answer to it. The answer lies not with human beings, but with the process of evolution. God was a scientist. He created from a single cell a human being. So the earlier animals, if you ever have a pet dog, you'll be surprised that the dog cannot see you clearly. The dog smells you. So all lower animals, olfactory is the main thing. And for us, if you remember the anatomy, you had two olfactory tracts, which was not going to the cortex, it was going to the limbic system. So the entire industry of these perfumes, it doesn't work with cortical sensation. It works with emotional sensation. So the child started smelling the mother when in the mother's womb. So whatever the mother was eating, the child was smelling. So if you want a particular food to be given to the child after birth, it is a nice idea to start. I don't know how many of you have seen this, that after the birth, if the mother is not there, even in a hospital, even in an NICU, if you keep a cloth which the mother has worn, that stimulates the child and he goes to sleep. Any one of you have tried this? Sir, this is a very common observation. When I started teaching as a professor, lot of mothers would come and say, "Mera bachcha to meri chunni leke sota hai." There's a working mother, and I never understood what was the science in it till we went into this. So it's a very important. The other thing is, as you can see on the image, the child is doing a thumb sucking. I don't know, as parents, all of you are against thumb sucking. But when I see a child doing a thumb sucking, I first go and congratulate the mother. Your child is intelligent, because it takes a lot of cognitive sensation to take the hand to the mouth. Incidentally, all children in their mother's womb were doing thumb sucking without nobody interfering. This is a very important phenomenon. And before I go back to my journey, I have a simple question to all of you. Do you think that there is a Morrow's reflex in the mother's womb? If I see a mother with 38 weeker, do you think there is a Morrow's reflex? Yes. Yes? Okay. Now, this is one part of my slides, my journey with you, is that at times I would ask you to introspect and think you are the fetus. And let's imagine this is the mother's womb in which you are separated, protected from light, sound, in a beautiful environment, a warm liquid which is almost bacteria free. Now imagine if you were the fetus and the mother was getting up from the bed or was moving, what would happen to you if there was a Morrow's reflex? Life would be very bumpy. Each time you would throw, and you know in the last trimester that a fetus requires 18 hours of REM sleep to help the cognition. He dreams a lot. As you age on, your sleep becomes less and your REM sleep becomes still less. I always say perhaps our dreams become over. So at least the fetus has a lot of dreams even before it comes to the earth. And there is an intrauterine environment in which he is constantly moving, he is smelling, there is an anti-gravity. And when we talk of nutrition, perhaps we forget that the main part of the nutrition is that this 23 weeker, where the brain surface is absolutely smooth, has to become a 40 weeker, which is all convoluted, and there are a lot of sulci and zyri. So what is going to make this movement? And as we discuss this, is it moving? Are you able to look at it, or am I coming in the way? Yeah? Yeah? Yeah, I think it's right only. It moved, I think. Yeah. So, if you see the entire brain development, have you seen the birth of a calf? If you see the birth of a calf, immediately after birth it starts to walking on four legs. If you see the birth of a human child, it takes 9 months to walk like a calf on four legs. And I always had this question, and now I can tell you the answer lies that while the cell migration are taking place from the germinal matrix to the cortex, your myelinization is helping. Which food is going to help in myelinization? And myelinization is not completed at the time of the birth. It goes right up to the age of 10 years. Majority is completed by 9. So a child could not walk crawl like a calf because the pyramidal tract was not myelinated. What helps in anybody? What helps in myelination? It is the cholesterol. So the lipid is going to help in the myelination. So I'm trying to link these two between the nutrition we take and the developmental journey of the brain. And the synaptogenesis is all about experience. It keeps on happening till the age of 18 years. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a very wonderful area. We all have learned human brain cells don't multiply. There is one part of the brain where the cells keep on multiplying. Any guess? That is the hippocampus. And this area of the limbic system is very, very unique in the sense it gives you the short-term memory. And again, this requires polyunsaturated fatty acids to develop. And this area, the hippocampus and the amygdala, get stimulated in the mother's womb. So this journey of the micronutrients is very, very important. Now, we are going to talk about nutrition. I have a very sincere question to all of you. Who decides when the child is going to be born? Is it the obstetrician? Is it the child? Is it the doctor? Is it the astrologer? Who decides? Yes? Yes? Mother's physiology. Birth process is too important to be left to mothers. The fetus in its democratic right does not allow this permission to be only given to mother. So this is one of the most outstanding discoveries of this century. Who decides when I am going to be born? When Aristotle was asked this question, when does the egg hatch? You know what he replied? He said, the egg hatches when there is no food within the egg. So the question was, is it that the child is going to be born? Who decides? And this is a wonderful thing. The brain of the fetus speaks to the mother. It is the fetus who decides. And I will tell you the newfound biology which tells how this fetal brain is talking to the mother. If you don't honor this, you are going to have problem with nutrition. This mother will not be prepared to give breast milk. So please remember, often I have seen the fetus was sleeping peacefully in the mother's womb in the comfort, and there we were as God cut open the abdomen and suddenly took out the fetus. I always said the way to wake up a child is twofold. One is the way the father wakes up, and the one is the way the mother wakes up. How does the father wake up? He doesn't even shake. It's like a bullet, he calls. And you have to wake up. There's no choice. How does the mother wake up? It gently shakes you, and then you say, give me more time. Then she again comes after 5 minutes. Then what is happening? You are in deep stage of sleep. You are slowly coming up into the sleep and coming out of it. What was happening to this child? He was not prepared. His brain is not asking anything. Suddenly, somebody cut open the abdomen when he was in his REM sleep, took him out. In neonatology, you have read transient tachypnea of newborn. Why does it happen when the labor pain does not start? If the labor pain started and then you do a C-section, this never happens. Think of your own days. When first time you became a resident and you had a night call and somebody called you when you were sleeping, what happens? You will have a palpitation. You will have a tachypnea. You will be confused because you are in deep sleep and somebody suddenly wakes you up. So this is happening. So how does the child speak to the... Now, when we were students, we were taught that oxytocin is at two places. One is at the mother's uterus to expel out the child, and one is at the breast to provide the milk. Nature was trying to kill two birds with one stone. On one hand, you are pushing out the child. On the other, you are providing milk to the child. That we all understood. What we never understood, those who did their postgraduate before 2000 were never told about a wonderful thing. There is a third place where there is this receptor of oxytocin. And this was that we all knew from this that suddenly this oxytocin comes both from the fetus and the mother. But what is triggering? Now we know that when the blood sugar falls in the mother's womb, or the child is taking more than 15% of the metabolism of the mother, there is less sugar, there is less food available. He sends the first message, his oxytocin gets liberated, his ACTH gets liberated, cortisol is secreted, goes to the placenta, stop the progesterone, build up the estrogen, further increase the oxytocin contraction. Now imagine if you do not allow this, when the mother was crying out of pain, Two things were happening. The oxytocin was preparing the breast to give you milk. Why did I tell you this story? The story is being told because if oxytocin has not been secreted, if you have just cut the abdomen and taken out the child, it will be very difficult for the mother to lactate. If you have not given the child to the mother just after birth, lactation will be a failure because oxytocin gets released from the hypothalamic pituitary axis, which is not available. So, what made us learn? Now, it was not the doctors. It was a very strange thing. Scientists found a pair of rats somewhere in 2003. These rats were very special. When they were mixed up with a lot of people, they were maintaining 100% loyalty to their family. They would not mix up with anybody. And they would cuddle their child and move with their children. So the scientists said, what is special about this rat? This prairie vole became a world-class famous. They didn't find this. Then they cut the brain. And did you find these receptors? These are the receptors which are oxytocin receptors. So when they took the extract and injected into other rats, their behavior changed. And what am I trying to tell you? It is oxytocin is a love hormone. And oxytocin gets secreted all along the pregnancy. Don't quarrel with a pregnant woman even if she is wrong. If you do this, you are preparing the mother for a successful lactation. Our hospitals create a stress. Stress stops oxytocin. And hence you say the failure to progress labor is because of our behavior, because of the place in which we are moving. So when there is a birth companion, when all the stages of labor are happening in one bed, then more oxytocin gets secreted and your child is going to get good breast milk. So this is the neuroscientist who showed this, and these are the receptors which have been found. If the father is involved in the delivery, it is the vasopressin which comes out, and the mother, the oxytocin. We stop oxytocin when we create a fear. We stop oxytocin when there is no privacy. Even animals will not deliver till they get privacy. And here, from the East India Company days, we suddenly learned that there is going to be one labor room where more than one mother are going to deliver. Traditionally, Indians never delivered in that way. There used to be a home. There used to be a birth companion. There used to be one cot. There never was moving stages of labor. So it was 1707, I traced in India, where this was introduced. The Britishers went back to their country and they did not advocate this method. They went back to a single room with a birth companion with a privacy, and delivery being done by midwifery rather than by doctors, so that oxytocin doesn't stop. Incidentally, we in India are still following, and that's one of the main reasons why these receptors are not. Now you would say, Dr. Singh, why are you telling me this? Every day I hear of autism. Every day I hear of behavioral disorder. You will be surprised that this prefrontal cortex, this limbic system, is the same area which gets involved in a communication disorder, what you call as autistic spectrum disease. Colleagues, I request you, already some of the very interesting studies have shown that if oxytocin is deprived, the brain receptors are not stimulated. You were not going to get breast milk. By denial of breast milk, you lose 10 IQ points. Because there is no other food which can be given from any other animal which can give you the same foods which your brain requires. Remember, at the time of the birth, only 20% of your brain is formed. 80% is yet to be formed. And your food, that is the breast milk, is made to help your brain, not your body. If you take buffalo's milk, it contains more fat. You will become taller. You will become stouter. Do you want to become a giraffe? When God created human being, He said, I don't want you to be giraffe, neither I want you to be an elephant, nor I want you to be as beautiful as a peacock. I want you to be a human being with a brain. And it is this brain which is getting affected. And so when the mother was crying, can you see this high level of oxytocin which peaks? Because of this peaking of oxytocin, two things is happening. The mother's brain is getting wired in a different way. And so also the child. There's a beautiful article in Nature last month. The mother's circuit changes, and now they have done functional MRI to show that if oxytocin is not released, the mom is not created. Mom is not a definition. There is a change in the neuronal circuit of the mother's brain, and also the circuit change in the fetal brain. To the fetal brain it tells, go to your mother. To the mother it says, there's a concern for the child. And so, this beautiful article which has shown the same areas. So what did they do? They made the mother hear the cry of her own child and the cry of other children. Those who were born with caesarean section, those in which the child was not given to the mother, those in which the labor pain did not start, it was found that these areas never got stimulated. And hence, the brain did not respond to the cry of their own child. There was no concern. This peaks till the age of 2 months and slowly comes down. So the bonding of the two brains happens because of this simple phenomenon. Ladies and gentlemen, please understand, God never created an accident. For everything there is a reasoning, there is a logic. And if we don't follow that logic, we are going to pay a huge value in terms of humanity. This, you can see, again, the same thing which I was telling you. One second. I am not very good at this anyway. You can see this amygdala. Can you see the anterior cingulate gyrus? This whole limbic system. So the reward. See what happens when the mother holds the child, a new circuit is formed known as nucleus accumbens, which gives a reward to the mother. It has got the dopamine D2 receptors. These receptors, it is required that oxytocin flows. So the child is still not yet born, but the brain of the mother has been created. Today when you feel so much of criminality, perhaps the reason also lies that we are coming in the way of the normal biology. And so this is a wonderful study which has been done, published. Breastfeeding can increase the release of oxytocin, and some studies associated with higher maternal sensitivity and reduced level of child neglect. So if you see a mother neglecting the child, the mother need not be blamed. It is also that we have come in the way. And stress can lead to less brain development. So during the pregnancy, don't give stress to the mother. Post-birth, please don't give stress. The Indian tradition knew this, and I will just move on to say, now that the child is born, now a new question is coming. What is that question? The child needs to develop very fast. Yes, the birth weight needs to increase at a speed which never has increased. The head circumference is going to increase at a speed which never he will going to touch with that velocity. But just imagine, have you ever questioned yourself that the day one when the child was born, his stomach side was only 1.5 centimeter. On day 3, it was 2.5 centimeter. On day 7, it was 3 to 7, which means that the stomach size was so small that it could take only 5 ml of milk. On day 3, 20 ml of milk, and on day 7, 45 ml of milk. How is nature is going to help this? On one side, you require growth brain, you require body growth. On the other side, stomach capacity is so small to even take only 5 ml. And see the beauty. The breast milk which is being secreted is appropriate to that stomach size. So the first day, each time you expel out the colostrum, it is only 2 to 10 ml, not more than that. Always the mother would ask you, "Mujhe doodh nahi aa raha hai," because she thinks that there should be more milk. But the body is producing only that amount of milk which the tummy can take. So the small tummies and requiring cognition, this is a huge. And just see. Now, this if is there, remember the 3 terms, 5, 20, 45. Day 1, day 3, day 7. Now see, this has been compared that day 1 it is the size of a cherry, day 3 it is the size of a walnut, an apricot and a large egg. How does, now it wants to give 120 calorie. It has to give 2.2 gram per kg of protein. It has to give linoleic acid and etc. How is it going to give? Now nature did a beautiful combination. It changed the composition of the milk. And it changed on these 3 days. Day 1, day 3, day 7. So you see colostrum for the first 2 days. Colostrum contains lot of protein and it is the first vaccine to the child. On day, then comes the transitional milk, and by day 10 comes the mature milk. The composition is changing. And even in the mature milk, the nature has made first drink the water, satisfy your thirst, and then comes the hind milk which contains most of these fatty acids. So food for the brain starts with food for small tummies. Now, I have just told you the story of a child who was supposed to be born. There's a preparation for there, and how nature is accommodating a huge amount of work through a very small tummy. After 6 months, when you have to do the weaning, we as human beings have to still learn what kind of food to be given in small quantities so that we neither stretch the stomach nor we miss the boat. That means that the developmental part is not missed. So now I come to the historical. Now you see this history. 2.5 million years ago, there was a Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic. How did journey begin? Initially, all were non-vegetarian. Now this non-vegetarian word is very confusing. I keep on asking some of you, well, who is a non-vegetarian? Yes? Nobody is a non-vegetarian among you. Because when there was a Stone Age, non-vegetarian means they will only eat flesh. They will only eat meat. You are all mixed. Then came when the hunter and the gatherer tribe started settling down. It created a flora, fauna, it had its own animals. Then they said, what's the need? Why should we kill animals? So some of them became vegetarians. Now, there was a group which settled around the rivers. There are 4 civilizations which in the history have developed along the rivers. Anybody? And they were very close. Yes. So the Indus was along the Indus River. And where does the Indus River drain? Those who come from Gujarat, they must be remembering. It passes very close to the Run of Kutch and drains near Karachi. That is in the Arabian Sea. So that was Indus Valley civilization. Just if you go along the Arabian Sea a bit, you will have another 2 rivers, the Tigris and Euphrates, and you have the Mesopotamian civilization. And if you go still further, get into the Red Sea, entering into the Mediterranean, on the left side you have the Nile River, and you have the Egyptian civilizations. 3 civilizations in close space, all draining into the Arabian Sea or into the Red Sea. And all had one thing common. What was that? apart from taking vegetarian, they started eating fish. Now let's understand, did that have any role? Now when I see here, there's a wonderful thing. In the last 2 million years, when you see, suddenly the brain size increases. This is the brain size and this is the million years. Suddenly something must triggered this green area where suddenly the brain size started increasing. Have you thought what it is? Yes? There has to be some change in the food. Yes. This is the new work done by the anthropology department, and this. So you can see the cranial capacity suddenly increasing. And so you can see how the Homo habilis, and when he became Homo erectans, there is a huge growth. You can see the growth here. Now this is a wonderful work done by Crawford, who said that basically omega-3 and omega-6 both can be obtained from vegetable source. There is a problem. Omega-3 gives rise to a polyunsaturated fatty acids. All the fat which you see in the tummies are saturated fats. So the fat which is visible is always the bad fat. The fat which is invisible is the good fat, and that is the unsaturated fat because it has double bonds. Among the polyunsaturated fatty acids, omega-3 gets converted into DSA and omega-6 gets converted into A. Now the human brain is not very good at converting this. The human metabolism cannot convert. And fish is a direct source of DHA. That's the beauty of it. And your brain, and especially the growing brain of a child, requires 70% of it. So this Crawford hypothesis was that it was abundance of fish, and he goes on to say it was not a cognitive revolution, it was a cognitive evolution of the change in the food and the growth. Now we are in a different world. In the age of globalization, it actually meant it was supposed to be in economics, that is, bring all the forces of the economics of various countries together. There's something called food globalization. Have you ever thought? So what I'm predicting, the way we are moving, in next half a century, the brain development will come down. Just see it for yourself. So this food globalization, what is happening? Instead of eating your own food, like if I visit a Marathi friend of mine, I would get a different food. If I would visit a Bengali friend of mine, now I know there's a common food. There will be chips, there will be a freeze, there will be a can. So this is globalization. And you can see food and meaning. This is written as home cooked, but these are drinks which are seen. And this is not one drink, they are huge drinks. What is these drinks are up to? Let's see. So just like India, Brazil, and American president was in news that he wants to create a wall in Brazil. But let me tell you, a huge amount of money, if you create a wall, Brazil will be saved. Because the damage they have done to Brazil, you cannot imagine. The average height, one of the oldest tribe, the average height was 5 feet 6 inch. Today the height is only 5 feet 3 inch. What is happening? You are taking saturated fat. You are taking drinks which are laced with refined sugar. So your thirst, which was water, you are putting high calories. And what is the answer? The answer is this: short stature with overweight. And this is what India is also suffering from. So we are moving to a globalization where 7 out of 10 Mexicans are overweight, and the same thing is coming. So food, so experts talk about nutrition transition in which population have moved straight from malnutrition to obesity. They have never been to normal nutrition. And so you can see the civilization of how food is changing the brain. And so, do you want your future that the brain development would stop? Yes. And this is the basic thing which I told you. What is very, very important is the omega-3 helps in synaptogenesis. We knew that synaptogenesis takes place up till 18 years. Neurogenesis, cell differentiation, gray matter expansion, and omega-6. Now imagine even the placental function is done by omega-6. So this is what it is. If you are not taking, and I keep on saying, if you want your children to become vegetarian, allow them to be non-veg, eat fish till the age of 6 years. Once the brain is developed, get them bathed with Ganges water and declare them vegetarian. And if you don't believe this is anybody understanding this? Fish was a cultural part of Asia. This is known as vesica species. Can you see? This is a special circle which intersect each other. The diameter of these two circles are the same, and the center of each comes on the periphery of the other. So the center of here lies here, and the center of this circle lies here. This is a mathematical modeling which has been done. This is Chinese New Year's Day. Anybody? What is this? A fish has been decorated like a bride. You know why? Are there any Bengalis here? Yeah. So you know why is this. So you know it's that importance. And the Brahmins of Bengal declared fish as a vegetarian. They don't declare it as a non-veg. Now, this is, you know what is this? This is Notre Dame. And can you see this resembles the fish gills? And this is vesica species. So there is a symmetry. Those days when architecture was made, it was not made for you and me. It was made for the creator. That the creator knows the geometry so nicely that anything we design must have symmetry. And so this is this. So you can see fish as a part of the culture lies all over it. And the dietary quality and the relative brain size, there is a direct relationship. And when you see this plate, what means to you? Anybody? You see, food is not carbohydrate, protein, micronutrients. No, sir. Food is first eaten through your first sensation which in fetal life you develop. What was that? You smell the food. You see the food, your eyes eat it. You touch the food. If you eat with a spoon, you never feel the texture. आपका दिमाग खाने को छूने के साथ ही तैयार हो जाता है ये खाना खाना है या नहीं खाना है. So when this multicolored food is kept on a plate, which the hotel industry knows very well, you are going to eat more. Unfortunately, when the mother wants to give, she forgets this. So there should be a class, and I compliment Nestle that initially they used to have this food class in which they used to show how to decorate the plate. The child is not going to eat because there's protein in it or micronutrients. It should look colorful. It should have the diversity. It should have the smell. It should have the texture which would make it. So this is all the diversity and the flavor bridge. And you enjoy the food through various textures. So if you are just giving food to fill the tummy, it doesn't make sense to you. Now, you can see this is going to happen. How many of you have reached this stage? Even I have reached this stage. So this is what is going to happen to the civilization. And I don't want to forget the cold drink. It could be any name. I don't want to get into litigation with, but any aerated sugar drink is dangerous because it just adds to it. This is not a part of our normal food. The normal food which helped the brain to develop had 5 characteristics. Number 1, there was no trans fat. It was polyunsaturated fatty acids. Number 2, they had less sugar. Number 3, it had vitamin D. You had plenty of exposure to sunlight. And number 5, it didn't have refined sugar. It had jaggery rather than sugar. So now I have some interest in trying to understand how this evolution of the brain became, because all of you are hearing me because you are here. If this audience was a different kind, I couldn't have been communicating. So it is the brain through which you imagine, you see, you learn, you move. And when the child is born, these wires, these million wires and trillion communications happen when the mother touches the child. So the first oxytocin, the first breast milk was helping these wires to get united. This is a very interesting slide, that if you see the lower animals, they have this brainstem which is known as archipallium. I keep on saying this is the archived part of the brain which allows you to survive. So you can eat, you can drink, you can have children, you can walk with this part of the brain. But this part of the brain, which is the reptile brain, has no emotions. A crocodile tear, that is why it is said, because crocodile doesn't have a limbic system. It can eat. Then came the birds. So came the meso, where the emotional system came. And lastly, the neocortex came, which knows how to control the emotions. So when a child is born, we say primitive reflexes because the control lies here. Then with the mother's touch, the control is taken here. There is an attachment, and then slowly the mother teaches how to control the temper tantrums, how to control the emotions, and hence develops the abstract thinking, that is the neocortex. If we have not invested in this, we have not invested. And food is a very, very important item to help this. So the negative outcome and the positive outcome, we rely too much on genes. The genes are at the center, they don't help. It is this negative and positive outcomes which shapes a child. And if you don't believe this, see this wonderful photograph of two twins. Both of them had been abandoned by their parents. They went to an orphanage. One of them was adopted. This was not adopted. This was stronger physically, but you can see the neocortex doesn't control so these black areas show that these areas. This child can become a criminal, can become anything, doesn't have the cortex to decide what is good or bad. And so you are the god of your children. Now in your newborn care, these three photographs, this child had suffered when I was a professor of neonatology from brain damage. And this is having an ATNR where the child is not able to communicate with you. Now what happens if the child cannot see your face? There is no stimulation to the brain. So see how the feeding is going. The nurse is doing the Riles tube feeding, looking towards the other side. There is no eye contact. There is no food to the brain. No wonder the weight increases, but the head circumference doesn't increase. You don't allow the mother to come in. Today I met a family which said for 15 days, the mother was not allowed to touch the child. You have done an irreparable damage to that contact, to the mother and child relationship. And hence, what did we do? These three photographs are taken at 2 minutes. Can you say? I just supported the neck. The moment you support the neck, hands come into midline. When does hand comes to midline? When you have neck control. I asked all of you, why there is no Morrow's reflex in the mother's womb? You know why? Because the shape of the womb is such that the neck gets supported, and hence there is no Morrow's reflex. And hence hands can come to the midline, and hence the fetus can suck his thumb. So, to this child, you just supported the neck, and you can see he immediately took his hand to the mouth. And this is how cognition develops. This is how. So, these are the neuronal connection, and you see the contact of the child. This is how the neuronal contacts are taking place, arborization is taking place, and food is helping, and so the behavior, the motor skill, language, memory, emotion, everything is developing. And if you're still doubtful, see the Stanford University, what it is showing. By the age of 1 year, your language, your vision, your hearing, cognitive is almost peaked out. Brains are not formed in college and universities. Brains are formed in the first year of life. And who is your first teacher? The mother. So, at some time, please do go and congratulate your mothers. That you are sitting in this hall, that you have become doctors, is because that person allowed that first year of the brain to develop in such. And hence, the food and nutrition is so important in this critical years of brain development. Later on, you can send him to Oxford. It will not help because the ability to acquire knowledge doesn't there. Now, this is a wonderful thing. When the mother called, which part of the brain is stimulated? Yes, you can see a red part. There it is. So when the mother called, and this is a EEG, this is a wonderful study which was done, the activation of the left side of the brain was done. You know why? This is language learning. When a father called or a stranger called, which part of the brain gets stimulated? The right side. Yes? So this is not imagination, this is not literature. This is factual science. Because this is only voice recognition, ye kiski awaaz hai. And the left side is learning. So that is why you learn your mother tongue, because it is the mother's voice. Okay. Now, some of the Indian traditions. When I went to South, I found that the sari which were used by the mother was kept in this way. This is a child which is, his father was an army officer, is still an army officer. He called me, he had twins, born at R.R. Hospital, New Delhi. One twin died. He was worried that this child is cognitively not going to do well. When I saw the tone and posture, it was wonderful. I kept on asking him, what are you doing? She said, no, I'm doing nothing. Then very reluctantly, she took me to her mother. Here I am standing, you can see me. And this was in their bedroom, a bamboo which was tied and the mother's sari. We all celebrate kangaroo mother care. This is the original kangaroo mother care because it has the smell of the mother. Remember, the amygdala is the first information the olfactory develops. And it never goes to the cortex, it goes directly to the limbic system. You either like a smell or you don't like. You cannot reason out a smell. And what is this shape? This is actually resembling a mother's womb. So if you don't think, I have started keeping my newborns into this mother's sari. The warmer should have been made in this way, because the moment you keep, hands come to midline. You know why? They are just like uterus, they support the neck. So even if there is no neck control, the symmetry of the body comes. Can you find? So we were not a bunch of fools. Plagiocephaly affects cognition. When I was reading at AIMS in the nursery, बच्चे के सर के नीचे कोई तकिया नहीं लगी रहती थी. Have you seen any pillow under? But I remember in UP you had this rai, and in Bengal, madam, you will be knowing, it is mustard seed. In America, now these studies which are showing that positional plagiocephaly causes brain damage, they are using a helmet with screws to put back the shape. This wonderful mustard seed can do, or in UP the rai. I don't know about Maharashtra. The whole point is this, that you could support. Lot of people said, what does this mean? This is a famous painting of Jamini Roy. Anybody? What is cognition here? Anybody? How many of you have done this with your own child? You have done it? Great. Great, great. No, sometimes, I feel always that Maharashtra is something special. You are from which place? Huh? Gujarat. You are doing this? Good, good. I was in Ahmedabad, nobody told me that. Anyway, what is it? The mothers would keep the child across the legs. Once you keep across, the hip joint becomes stronger. शहर में बच्चों को लोग सीधे लेते हैं. See the ball and socket, if you stand straight, half of the ball is inside, half of the ball is outside. The ball has to also grow, the socket has also to grow. The moment you abduct it, the ball moves into the socket. गांव में लोग बच्चों को एक पांव इधर और एक पांव ऐसे लेते हैं या पीठ पे लेते हैं. The legs are abducted, so the hip joint are becoming stronger. She is swaying, so the vestibular stimulation. There is an eye contact, so there is a visual stimulation. She is singing, so there is an auditory stimulation. And the mother is not wearing too many clothes. The child can smell the mother. This is multi-sensory stimulation at zero cost. It's a play. Just imagine. All sensations are being moved. The vestibular, the visual, the hearing. What a simple way. We started using walkers. Walkers have been banned in Canada. Even as a grandparent, if you take a walker on the airport, you'll be arrested and fined. You can go to your Google search and see. Why were they banned? Because walkers are round in shape. If I had given you a car which was round and asked you to driven linear, you would have made an accident. What did the Indians do? This is the Hosangabad. People from Madhya Pradesh must appreciate. This is the classical walker which all of you must use. And now this has been agreed upon in UK, which they call it a push toy. Because walkers, the child never walks, he just moves. This is actually standing, and these moves, so there is a visual stimulation along with motor stimulation. Yes, you are using this? हाँ? चालान गाड़ी आप लोग लगाते यूज करते हैं? I used to tell my students, वो बोलते हैं मिलता ही नहीं है. Good. Now, to complete the story, lot of micronutrients have various functions. Some are helping in the brain development. I have said the omega-3 derivative DHA helping the lip. Some is preventing the cholestasis. Some is helping in retinopathy. The glutamine is helping the arginine, the leucine, vitamin A, vitamin D, calcium, iron. These are all the micronutrients which are so essential for the child. But the commonest micronutrient deficiency of this world is iron. You know what is the problem of iron? All my life I was told by Government of India that the way to understand iron deficiency is through doing what test? Hemoglobin. Yes, sir. And that's where the problem of iron lies. So 4 to 5 billion people are becoming. Before I go to this, just see this study. This study has been done in New York. 3% is anemic, but 9% is also any iron deficiency but not anemic. That means for every 3% population which you see as iron deficiency anemia, there is 9% which is still deficient but the hemoglobin is normal. Agreed? What is the effect of this? So they did a mathematics test in all children who were iron deficiency without anemia and iron deficiency anemia versus normal. 71% failed in that exam and they were iron deficiency without anemia. 72% with anemia. The normal levels only 49%. There was a clear 30% gap in them. Ladies and gentlemen, iron is required for cognition. Iron is not required only for hemoglobin. For you and me, iron is anemia. For the child, iron is cognition. Change the structure. And your hemoglobin normal levels never tells you that. So when there is a mild iron deficiency, your cognition is affected. When there is a major deficiency, then hemoglobin gets affected. And see this, the iron deficiency affects your hippocampus, the same area, and myelinization, and ADHD is created. So lot of problems are created. Your short-term memory, your learning memory gets affected. So tell the parents, start giving iron, and whatever food you take, you require at least 5 milligram of heme iron and 10 milligram of non-heme iron. But even if you take the word 5 milligram, no food can allow you, give you 5 milligram. So my request is, start thinking that iron is very, very important. Till 6 months you gain 10 IQ points by giving breast milk. Another 10 IQ points you can gain by giving iron, irrespective of anemia, starting from the age of 6 months to 2 years. After that, it's your theory. But don't allow the cognition to get lost. And this is, you can see the entire signaling effect of how the memory gets affected, and then your extra hippocampal. The same thing is with iodine. Mild iodine deficiency affects cognition. Moderate to severe affects the thyroid hormone. So mild deficiency, you will have normal thyroid hormone, but loss in cognition. And you can see how this nutritional gap, if you keep on taking and you are not addressing the energy gap, the vitamin A. So till 6 months, you had the help of God, who was trying to say how through breast milk your nutritional gap is addressed, even though your tummies are small. Even after 6 months, you have only 1/5 of the size of an adult. How to fulfill this? And this nutritional gaps needs to be fulfilled. And this dietary diversity, increasing the food fortification and supplementation. These are the choices you have. And most important is, fortification still holds the best, because whenever you give supplementation, people consider it as a medicine. And then also, if you see, fortified food has helped the hemoglobin better, although I think this study should be done with also IQ, rather than with only hemoglobin levels. But you can see that by sprinkling, you are not helping. So, my last slide, what are the key messages? Childhood is a period of rapid brain growth. So when you talk of nutrition, don't think of the body. I don't want a giraffe, I don't want an elephant, I don't want a peacock. चेहरे पे कुछ दाग हो तो ठीक है, दिमाग पे दाग नहीं होना चाहिए. So it is the height of the brain, it is the weight of the brain, and it is the beauty of the brain. That's what we stand as Homo sapiens in our body. And that's what we as doctors need to tell the parents. It is the brain. If you have one intelligent brain in this hall, this country's fate would change. Volume of brain doubles during the first year of life, reaches 80 to 90%. The digestive capacity is 1/5 of the adult, and homemade preparations may not be able to meet out what is required for the body, especially for the micronutrients. Lastly, iron and multi-micro fortified food is one of the answers. And the rapid growth of brain and development, never separate the brain with the body. I can be lean and thin. And before I end, in my childhood, I was fascinated by a teacher who used to come to the school. I knew his name, but I don't know what he's done. Before I end up this lecture, I have one message for all of you. Please hear me patiently. This gentleman would come every day to the school and tell what new thinking you have done. And in a mother tongue, that is in Bengali, he would make some scientific work and give it to the child. He died. And then suddenly, in 2012, I rediscovered this great person. What did he do? The story is, all of you as Indians must know this. There's a 21-year-old person. You have just read about the Bengal famine. Those days there was no job. He stood first class first at the age of 21 from Calcutta University, but there was no job. One day, he wrote a letter to Einstein. Einstein was double his age. Einstein had already got the Nobel Prize. And Einstein was still in Germany. He said, "Sir, I am a complete stranger to you. I was thinking about matter. When you heat solid, it becomes liquid. When you heat liquid, it becomes gas. When you heat gas, it becomes plasma. बर्फ को अगर हम गर्म करते हैं, पानी होता है, पानी को गर्म करते हैं, भाप होता है, भाप को गर्म करते हैं, प्लाज्मा होता है. अगर बर्फ को हम और ठंडा करें तो क्या होगा?" So he predicted, he did his research in the brain that if you would cool to minus 273 degree Kelvin temperature, a new matter will be formed. आज तक बच्चों की किताबों में लिखाया जाता है, there are 3 states of matter, excepting NCERT. Nobody else writes. Solid, liquid and gas. He was saying that if solid is cooled to minus 273, a new matter will be formed. He wrote in that letter, I sent this article to the British journals, they laughed at it and refused to publish it. If you agree to it, translate it in Germany and publish it in some German scientific magazine. Einstein sent this article to Niels Bohr, and Niels Bohr laughed at it and said, it sounds very interesting, but is there any element of truth in it? Because there was no place in this universe where there is minus 273 degree temperature. Einstein also died. This gentleman who used to come to the school believing in the cognition of children also died in 1974. The year was 2012. I had just been appointed as a national advisor to develop a program for the country. Suddenly I read in the newspaper, a place in Colombia, when they really took the temperature to minus 273 degree, they write with 99.5% accuracy, what was predicted more than 75 years before by an Indian scientist proved to be correct. A new matter was formed, and this matter was named after him, boson. This gentleman never found a job in Calcutta. He never could teach. He became a vice chancellor to Shantiniketan, but he was a man of physics. His wife was schizophrenic, his daughter was schizophrenic. Satyendra Nath Bose. And in 2012, Nobel Prize was given to the work which cognitively was thought 75 years back by an Indian scientist who never had a job, and he belonged to India which was yet not independent. Please understand, if we always keep on looking at the West, our brain is not going to give anything new. I leave this hall with a feeling that you all have brains, you can all contribute, start believing in it, start acting in what you believe. Thank you very much.
Should I go up? Dr. Singh, that was amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, please, it deserves a fabulous round of applause. That was amazing. And yes, I think a standing ovation.